This is a page I doodled last night in my live class that I teach in my community each week. I doodled circles mindfully, coordinating with breath in different colors using Ohuhu alcohol markers. Then I went back in with different shades of gray and added doodles in and amongst the circles that I drew. I do consider this page complete, but I'm about to do an experiment and I thought I would share it and see how it turns out. Because this is a really busy and colorful, although soft page, I think it makes a really great background for layering over some paint. I will admit I'm quite nervous about it. I've got some white here and I'm just going to start painting over top and trying not to pay too much attention to what is underneath. My vision is to create peekaboo leaves, basically. And I can see that the paint that I'm using is at least with one coat, we can still see some of the patterned background peeking through. I'm using super inexpensive white craft paint that I think probably came from the dollar store. And then I've also put out on my palette some of this Amsterdam acrylic paint in a nice hot pink, yellow, and orange. I play very intuitively in my art journal because the whole point of art journaling for me is not to become a skilled artist, but rather to have a really good time playing. And I've become really comfortable with what I teach in my weekly class, which is very much super simple doodling and then playing with a bit of color. But this is definitely new for me. This is experimenting in a new way. All right. I'm going to add a little bit of water to my brush before I add in any of these colors. I'm starting with yellow because it's the lightest. I see that I've actually left very little peeking through. Didn't even clean my brush. I just started picking up some of the orange and making it watery. Now I'm going to do the same again and pick up a little bit of this pink. So this is the boldest of the three. I'm going to water it down quite a bit. And then go back in. All right, this is not at all what I had envisioned that it would look like, but I am loving this. I'm going to get my heat gun to dry this quickly. All right, I'm back after using my heat gun to speed the drying process. I could have left it to air dry, but I am working on this in a lunch break, and so I have limited time. And I still have some time left, so that is exciting. I am going to now add some doodles in black. I've grabbed a Sakura Pigma Sensei 10, is what it says on the end. So this is going to be, these are going to be fairly bold lines. I don't have a plan in advance. These were leaf-like shapes, but they could also be like eyeballs. Or just really anything. They don't need to represent anything real. I don't have a plan. I am spontaneously adding marks to the page. Practicing spontaneity and release of inner critic. My goal is always to simply play and experiment. That doesn't mean it's always easy. Sometimes it's challenging to decide what to do. I would encourage you to follow along with what I'm doing if you feel inspired to do so, or take inspiration from my mark making and maybe come up with your own creative ideas. As I doodle away, I approach it with a meditative mindset. I sometimes focus a little bit on my breath, or focus on how the marker or pen sounds as it moves across the page. Really trying to give my brain a break from all of the thoughts, worries, decisions. And I also periodically check in with my body to see if I notice any tension that I could let go of. Sometimes when we're playing, we can still be intense, concentrating, and maybe our face scrunches up or our shoulders hunch up toward our ears. So whenever I notice if tension has crept in, I simply soften, release what I can. So when I teach live on Wednesday nights, Eastern Time, we play in our art journals together for about 55 minutes with people either following along with what I'm doing or doing their own thing in their art journal, or even just bringing a different creative, mindful project along to play with. Might be embroidery or knitting. And then after that, we extend our relaxation with a 30-minute yoga nidra meditation session, which is done lying down, which makes the class a bit unique. All right, let's do another double lined. I'll just do lines again. This is such a fun thing to do on my lunch break. I have an hour for lunch, so that gives me a good chunk of time. If you only have a half hour for lunch, you might just work on a little section of a page, or maybe work in a really tiny art journal so that you can complete a page in the time that you have. So, as with all random doodling experiences, I often keep going, adding more and more detail until it feels complete. My style of art journaling and teaching really emphasizes releasing perfectionism and surrendering to what is. Things don't always turn out the way we envisioned. I often do very busy pages to distract the eye, to give the eye lots of things to look at. And I often do what I call wonky shapes, intentionally staying away from attempts to make perfect circles or perfect straight lines. So I see here that I have smeared a bunch of pink paint down here in the bottom. This is a really great example of unintended marks. And I think they add beauty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Trying to decide if I think it needs anything else. I'm starting to like the balance of what's going on. I felt like this maybe needed a little bit more, but somehow I sort of like the simplicity of it. I think I might consider this done. If you would love to play in an art journal with other people, check out my Calm and Creative Cocoon. It's a school community where we meet live each week and work on a page. Super simple designs, super simple supplies, suitable for absolute beginners. Hope to see you there.